What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the Chud Box. What is it? Why did I build it? Who is it for? And address all the people online that are comparing it to an overbuilt Weber kettle or a new style of barrel cooker. So let's get into it. So to kick things off, let's talk about what the Chud Box isn't. And as I just mentioned, a lot of people are comparing it to an overbuilt Weber kettle, and that really could not be farther from the truth. And that's because a Weber kettle is a grill. The Chud Box is not a grill. On the Weber kettle, the PK, or if you have the grill attachment put into the mini Chud Box, the distance between your charcoal grate and your cooking grate is about 5 inches. That means you're cooking really hot and fast. For searing steaks, searing burgers, you know what a grill is. Where the mini Chud Box here has about that much space between the floor of the cooker and the grate, meaning you're cooking over direct coals, but you got about 2 feet of distance here, meaning you're still cooking around 250, 300 degrees up here, much like an offset, but over the direct coals. So when the fat drips down, you're gonna get that really nice fat smoke flavor and a really nice crust on whatever it is you're cooking. That is, of course, unless you wanna take this grate out, drop in the charcoal basket, pop the grate back in, and now when you drop your coal into the basket, it's exactly 5 inches apart, turning this into an actual charcoal grill, as opposed to a direct heat cooker. And unlike the Weber kettle, I suppose if you wanted to run this thing just like a grill with that basket in there at all times, it'd be pretty convenient because you got all the space down here to collect ash. You control airflow with the notch system on the door here. You got plenty of room for 2-zone cooking. But the real cool thing is you can stick a log down under here to smolder and smoke away, giving you plenty of real wood smoke underneath here and some hot and fast grilling up top. Pretty cool. Another thing the Chud Box is not is a barrel cooker. And other than the obvious differences like having charcoal access, which is something I'm gonna keep bringing up throughout this video, is just the style of cooking. You know, on a barrel cooker, it's all about what I like to call suffocation cooking, where you load the thing up with charcoal, light it up so it's full of potential energy, and then you shut down all the air, full lid, barely cracked the stack, and you got those 2 little air intakes that you just wanna crack open like a millimeter, meaning you're just letting enough oxygen in to hold it where you want to. And I hate that style of cooking. It produces a really dirty smoke, although that really doesn't matter because we're using charcoal. But also, whenever you take the lid off, you're gonna bring a big influx of air in, which could spike your temps. And if you want any sort of coal access, you have to remove all the grates, take your food out. If you need to add coal throughout a cook, it's just a pain in the butt. But on the mini Chud Box here, there's no suffocation cooking going on. We want that door cracked, if not open, for the entire time, letting that coal bed really breathe. So in that regard, it cooks a little bit more like an offset, where on the kettle and the drum and the Kamado and pretty much everything else, you're just trying to shut it down enough that temps don't spike. Speaking of Kamado cookers, they're basically designed to be an outdoor oven, right? They're super insulated, so the heat stays in there and you can burn a really efficient fire. But when it comes to cookers like offsets and anything else, the more efficient it is, the less smoke flavor you're gonna get. Not to mention, no charcoal access. So if you wanna throw on a wood chunk or mess with your coals at all, you not only have to remove all the meat, but all those baffles that they put in there, just to separate the coals from the heat. When the Chud Box, that's exactly what you want. Again, I'm not trying to say the Chud Box is better than any of these other cookers. I'm saying it's a completely different style of cooker. I'm sure you can use a Kamado or a barrel in the Chud Box fashion, but it's just gonna be a little more tough due to the design and the fact that the coals live at the bottom. Next up on the comparison list would be the Weber Smoky Mountain, and that's probably the closest you're gonna get to a commercially made cheap version of the Chud Box, although it still has the same problems as the other ones, meaning coal access. You can't get a shovel in there to pad out flames. You can lift it off pretty easily to throw on a wood chunk, which is nice. And to be honest with you, I did not know that the Weber Smoky Mountain existed when I was in the market for a direct heat cooker, which is why I built this in the first place. But either way, you're much more likely to do something like the minion method or the snake method using briquettes on a Weber Smoky Mountain than you are on a mini Chud Box, where you really want to have that nice big healthy coal bed. And lastly, comparing the Chud Box to an offset smoker or an offset vertical smoker or a reverse flow smoker, I've said it a million times, you know, the Chud Box is not a smoker, it's not a grill, it's something completely different. And that's because this is primarily a coal cooker. You can throw wood in there, I've done it many times, but really it's just not designed from an airflow perspective to burn whole log fires in there. It's just gonna hold in a lot of heat and a lot of smoke, and you're probably gonna over smoke anything you're going after. So in that regard, sometimes I'll build a fire out of wood, let it die for a little bit, you know, burn off all the harsh chemicals and then start cooking on it, or throw chunks in there periodically like you would on any of the other cookers to get some smoke flavor, or cook on it Santa Maria style, where I'll build a big fire in there with wood and I just won't shut the lid and just kind of cook on it like that. So now that we've talked about what the Chud Box isn't, let's talk about what it is, and that is a direct heat barbecue cooker. And that's kind of a new term, even though it's probably the oldest style of cooking that there is. If you look back, long before the offset, hill country style barbecue was cooking on these big old brick pits. You see them at Snow's, Cooper's, Lum's. They're still around at a lot of old school joints. And essentially it's just a big brick pit with the grates a couple couple feet apart. And then they have a big burn barrel where they're shoveling coals underneath. Again, so you get that nice, consistent 250, 300 degree temperature at grate level. But you're cooking with hot coals, and all the fat and juices dripping out create that incredible, unmistakable flavor of direct heat barbecue. And it's not just Texas, you know. If you go to the Carolinas, this is the primary way they've been cooking hogs, shoulders, and everything out there pretty much forever. And if you've ever had true whole hog, you know what I'm talking about with that direct heat flavor that is completely different than anything you're gonna get off of a grill or off of an offset smoker. And basically how the Chud Box came about is Evan and I were in the very early days of Leroy and Lewis discussing what the menu is gonna look like and what we're gonna be cooking on. And I said, have you noticed that Snow's Barbecue, who's been in the top 5, top 10 for years at this point, and is most famous for their pork steak, is cooking on a direct heat pit, and no one else in the top 10, maybe even the top 50, is doing that? Seems like a no-brainer. So to try and bring something new to Austin that was a little different than everyone around us, we built the first Chud Box a few days before a Red Dirt Barbecue Festival, dragged it out there, cooked some whole hog or cooked some pork steaks or something. But as soon as we had that thing built and tasted the food that was coming off of it, we were hooked. And that very first Chud Box is still sitting at Leroy and Lewis right now, 5 years later. Crazy. Although, a little birdie tells me that they're gonna get a new one in the next couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. But working at Leroy and Lewis, I instantly fell in love with that Chud Box flavor and that style of cooking. It's so much more fun, especially after spending years on an offset, working with coals and getting that nice crust and that amazing smoky flavor from direct heat. I knew I wanted one for the backyard, hence the mini Chud Box was born. Here it is, first mini Chud Box, 11 gauge steel, had a flip up door. Surprised there's not a raccoon living in there. And cool design, I thought, have magnets right there so it would hold the door, but you know, once you get this thing hot enough, magnets stop working. So then came version number 2, which is this guy right here. You've seen me build this on the channel. This is the more professional version. It's got a brick bottom, made out of 3/16 inch thick steel. Thing is a tank. Also got one of the 3/4 over there. Hey buddy. And of course, now we have updated to this new version where you have front access going in, along with all the accessories like the side table, the grill basket, the rotisserie, the overlay door, the custom thermometers, and I gotta say, I love cooking on this thing. So hopefully at this point you can really understand why I built this cooker in the first place, and that I'm not trying to emulate a barrel cooker or a grill or something like that, but really just trying to bring a solid steel version of one of the oldest styles of barbecue pit, you know, those big brick pits, to the backyard. Something that'll last forever, that's easy and fun to cook on, easy to clean, and pretty multifunctional. And when you understand that it's a different style of cooking as opposed to these charcoal cookers where you're doing snake methods and all that sort of stuff, you can start to understand why it's designed the way it is. You know, a lot of people ask me why I don't have a charcoal grate on the bottom, and that's because if you're cooking a whole hog, you're in real grease fire territory, right? You got a pork belly sitting right above some hot coals, and once that starts rendering down and dripping into the coals the way it's intended to do, you might have some flare-ups. So that's when you grab your shovel, you open the door, you go and you pat it in, you can damper out that fire that way, you can kind of sink the coals into the ash, but also because it's flat bottoms, you can now scoot your coals wherever you need them to be, whether that's under the ham, under the shoulder, off to the sides. And that's also why there's a lip in front. It's to hold in the grease and the ash. I did one design over there that had an easy sweep front, and as soon as we started cooking on it, grease just started pouring out the front, and it was just awful. People worry about grease management all the time on this thing, but that's because they wonder where it goes. It goes into the fire. That's the whole point of it. That's how you get that smoke and that flavor. Again, traditionally burn barrels are used where they just burn wood into coals and they shovel in as much or as little as they need in order to get the proper temperatures. On this guy, because it's small enough, usually a chimney is enough to get you started, and then I'll just start throwing in big chunks of lumped charcoal to maintain temps. And it's really easy once you get the hang of it. And because there's a giant door in the front, cleaning out the ash is incredibly easy. Just get a shovel, go in there and scoop it out. If you want to throw wood chunks in, you can do that. And you can control airflow with the notch system. I usually keep it on notch 1. If it starts to spike up, you can always close it down for a little bit. If you want some extra airflow, you can open it up. And that's what I love about it. It's just a super simple way of cooking. But it's pretty intuitive once you get the hang of it. And the flavor, I can't stop saying it, but it's unbeatable. You cannot beat that direct heat. So again, I really hope this clears up what the point of the mini Chud Box is, why I built it, why I designed it the way I did, and why I love cooking on it so much. And I know it's not the cheapest smoker on the market, but this thing is built like a tank. It'll last for generations. It's made out of fully welded 3/16 inch thick steel, and this thing will last forever. And you can support a small Texas businessman. That's me. Everything is made here in Texas. We are shipping them nationwide, and they are available right now. We'll keep making them if you keep ordering them, and you can help kind of save this dying tradition of hill country style barbecue, you know? I say dying. It was for a while, but it's definitely starting to make a comeback, you know? Nowadays, every pit builder here in Texas is building some version of this pit, and I say more the merrier. Because once you try cooking this style and taste the food, you will be hooked. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can check out Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue. He just got himself a full-size Chud Box and is loving it. You check out my buddy Drew Wilkins here on YouTube at Swine and Bovine. He's got an earlier version of the mini Chud Box, and he told me the other day that he cooks on that thing more than his offset, which I also built for him. Great channel, go give him a sub. Or of course, if you're in Austin, you can go to Leroy and Lewis and eat some food cooked on the very first Chud Box ever made, ranked number 5 in the state, so you know they're doing good stuff on that thing. And if not, you know, buy yourself some cinder blocks, give it a try. Or take the baffle plates out of your Kamado, or open up all the vents on your Weber Smoky Mountain, and just give Hill Country Barbecue or Carolina Style a chance. It's great for crispy skin picnic hams, crispy skin pork belly, chickens all day long, ribs. In fact, I'm probably gonna throw a rack of ribs on right now because all this direct heat talk is making me hungry. Pat them dry. Going on with some good old-fashioned Chud Rub. On sale now, shopchuds.com, or just chudsbbq.com. That's where you'll find pretty much everything. Rubs, mini Chud boxes, hats, shirts, sausage mix, you name it. Do appreciate the support. And don't forget the sides, folks. Come on, rookie move. There is just one thing you gotta worry about in the old Texas Hill Country. And that's all those pesky, dirty, no good, rotten little boot snakes. Got this pit fired right up to about 300 degrees. As you saw earlier, I had some coals in there already. Threw a couple more chunks in there, hit it with the old flamethrower. Came up in about 10 minutes. Super convenient. So on the pit we go. Again, if you're new to this kind of a cooker, I recommend starting out with just a nice chimney of some beautiful charcoal. That way you know how much to add. Usually a fully packed Chud chimney of the black bag of Fogo gets this thing right up to 275, 300 degrees. And then you can start pitching in chunks of charcoal as needed. Throw some wood chips in there if you want, wood chunks. Maybe have a smoldering log off to the side. But really, we just want this to start cooking. Once it starts rendering down, it'll start hitting the coals and just get some beautiful smoke coming out of there. And oh, it smells so good already. And here we are after a couple of hours. A little flare up going on since I just opened the top, but look at the color on these beautiful ribs. And I am barely trying. I flipped these over once already. Let's check out how that underside is looking. Oh yeah, perfect. Gotta love that. But the real beauty of direct heat, folks, is busting out a mop sauce. I've made so many on this channel. You can check out any of my other direct heat videos, but there's just something so satisfying about mopping some ribs, chickens, pork steaks, you name it. It's just gonna cook on. It's a really thin kind of barbecue sauce, very vinegar heavy. Add some wonderful flavor, soften up anything that got too crispy. There's a little chunks of onion and garlic in there that'll cook on, and it helps stifle the flames. Bring back mopped barbecue. I'm telling you, it's the best. I will check back in on these in a little bit. Gotta love direct heat ribs, folks. Nice and tender. The smell, I mean, oh, I wish you could be here. Beautiful. Gotta love that. I just love ribs. So tender, so quick, so easy. But I think it's time for the official taste test. All right, y'all, and that is it for this video. Again, I'm not really trying to talk bad about any other pit builders or pits out there on the market. I'm just trying to explain why I built this, and while it may look similar to a lot of things out there, if I were to build the perfect pit for me, this would be it. And because I can build pits, this is the pit that I built. Hope that makes sense, and I'm super pumped that I can bring it to the market for you guys to have one for yourself if you feel so inclined. But all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Let YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. If you pick up a Chud box for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are cooking. Big shout out to all the Patreon members. Thank you for supporting Team Chud and allowing me to keep making all these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace.